what the F1 is going on in our real estate market in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I'm at here today. And I'm bringing on my amazing lender once again, Mr. Dave Sousa from Glendale, California. Welcome aboard, Dave.
Thank you, sir. Good to be with you.
Man, happy to have you back on up here. I'm in Las Vegas. You know, we got the F1 going on right now. It has turned the Las Vegas Strip upside down because that's where they're racing, right down the strip. Can you believe that?
It sounds exciting. I wish I was there to watch it.
Yeah, 10 p.m. tonight is when it starts. I guess we're going to go about 10 to 2 roughly for the race this evening here in Las Vegas, right down the strip. I got the opportunity to take my two boys driving the strip while it's all set up. They've just turned the strip upside down, and they have all the barriers put up there and the whole deal. And they've got so many people there, the security and everybody that's coordinating this thing. It's quite
an experience. So with it all set up, they gave you the opportunity to actually drive it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did. We took advantage of that, and it was really, really cool to be able to drive down these tracks in the Las Vegas Boulevard while it's all set up for the F1 that's going on.
Your kids must have loved that.
Lewis Hamilton, by the way, this is going to be his last race with Mercedes-Benz. He's going to be finishing his contract with Mercedes. This is his last race. This guy, 7 times champion, the F1 champion, which is tying with Mr. Michael Schumacher. They tied the record. This kid, 39 years old. I say kid, but he's 39 years old. He is making about $55 million a year right now. And now he's going to move over to Ferrari. Ferrari's got him. They're taking him. Sorry, Mercedes. And he's Sir Lewis Hamilton, honestly. He's British, and he has been knighted Sir Lewis Hamilton. So that's pretty fantastic, too. What a career this guy has had. It's been absolutely amazing, setting all kinds of records with 103 races won. And again, 7 times F1 champion, tying him with Mr. Michael Schumacher once again. So
an interesting side fact that we picked up right before we went on the air is he apparently started racing when he was 8 years old.
Yes, that's right.
Racing
8 years old. Amazing. Unbelievable. So kind of interesting, Dave. Makes me wonder who's racing into our market right now. We don't have a lot of people racing. The number of sales this year in 2024 are going to be very low. They're going to be probably just under 4 million sales this year, which is really a very, very low number of sales for us.
Can you share with us how that compares with, let's say, 23, 22, 21?
Well, 23 was very low, and that was at 4.1 million. So a little undetermined right now for 24, but it's probably going to be just a little south of that number. I'm thinking of 395, 398, somewhere around there, just under 4 million. So last year was very low at 4.1. 2022, we were up a little bit higher at a little over 5.3 million. Okay, so that's quite a jump from 23.
And I'm guessing 21 was like a record year.
23 was a great year, at 6.12 million in sales in the United States.
I think you mean 21.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What did I say? 2021 was 6.12 million in sales.
Yeah. And I think if I remember correctly, 21 was actually greater than either 2020 or 22. And that was obviously with interest rates having gone as low as they did
yes,
as a result of the pandemic.
Yes.
Which consequently is the same reason and has a lot to do with the lower numbers for 23 and then year-to-date 24 because of the interest rates.
Correct. So, Dave, what are you seeing right now? And I'll tell you and share with you what I'm seeing. Who's going into the market? Who's racing into the market right now? Not a lot of people, but there are those that are taking advantage of some of the opportunities out there with this rate being higher right now and days on market accumulating, right? Homes are still selling, and we have had a slight pickup in buyers, about 3.5% for this fourth quarter. I don't know if that was because the election has ended and consumer confidence has gone up to some degree, and people are starting moving forward because the rates also went up as well. I believe, you tell me where we're at now, Dave, but I'm thinking we're somewhere nationally around a 6.84 for a 30-year fix. Is that right?
Yeah, right now our par rate for a 30-year is about 6.625. We tend to be a little bit lower than most. I would say market average for a 30-year fixed is somewhere around what you said, 6.8, 6.9, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah, so you guys are beating the national average. That's fantastic, and that's for a par borrower, right?
Yes. Yeah. In other words, par meaning that is our par price, where anybody that's getting that rate is not spending additional money to buy down the interest rate beyond that.
All right, fantastic. Well, I was listening a little bit to Barbara Corcoran earlier. We all know her. She's very in tune to the markets. I always follow a lot of what she has to say, but collectively between the National Association of Realtors and Altos Research, just a multitude of different places where I get my information, and collectively look at what's going on. And a lot of them seem to line up pretty close to what's happening. Our buyers right now out there are Gen Z. Our Gen Z buyers are outpacing the millennials right now, is what I understand. And what's really interesting is about 75% was the number reported of buyers that are being financed by their parents. That's amazing to me. You hear anything about that, Dave?
Yeah, I can certainly attest to the fact that there are a lot of people who are buying now who have the income power, but are getting either gifts and or co-signing from family or parents. And that ties into another part of it where the parents of Gen Z are people who have enjoyed a lot of gains in wealth because of the growth within the stock market.
Right. Yeah.
So if you've got parents that are experiencing a certain amount of gain in wealth, and you've got children who have income but need a little help with down payment, that is a perfect recipe for either gifts from family or gifts from parents to get started, or in some cases, co-signing with the children to help them qualify and get into a home.
Right. When Ryan Serhant was asked, well, why is he feeling that he's seeing this large number of people of this demographic helping the kids buy homes? And are they actually buying the homes for them, financing the homes for them? What are they doing? He said what he's seeing is they're actually just buying second, third homes or investment properties, and they're letting their kids live in them. That's what he's seen a lot of. That's not all across the board, but that's a large majority. So that's where we're at in our world right now. Our first-time home buyers, which is only comprising about 24% of our buyer market right now, which is a really low number. And then you got about another 27% are all cash buyers out there. And that's a good number. That's a good high number of all cash buyers. But again, our first-time home buyers dropping down to 24%.
And for those of us who aren't quite aware of the Gen Z is typically started around the late 90s. So you're talking about people who are in their late 20s to early to mid 30s.
Yes, yeah. And our average first-time home buyer is that mid to latter part of the 30s, about 36, 38.
Yeah,
is our first time.
I would say Gen Z starting at 1997, going forward from there. The ones that are getting, my personal experience is the buyers that are in the, let's say, upper 20s to lower mid 20s, those will typically be the buyers that are more likely to have co-signers from parents, meaning they want to get into the home market, but they're having the parents co-sign with them so that they can, qualify, and then additionally getting gifts from parents. Because if you're in your low to mid 20s, a lot of people in that bracket do not necessarily have the money saved up for a down payment.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I'm surprised that 24%, our first-time home buyers are making up 24% of the market right now. To me, that I thought it was going to be like about maybe 10%, but I'm shocked here at 24%. But still, that's a low number regardless. So I feel for our first-time home buyers. If you don't have equity, you're pulling from another property. Really, really challenging to buy a property, be able to afford it with almost 7% interest rates. So following up what Barbara Corcoran had mentioned, she had said that if our rates get down in 2025 with a 5 in it, she quoted a 5 in the interest rate, she feels the market's going to go ballistic. And I could agree that it's going to get a lot busier. There's so many elements involved here, of course, but I feel that that's not probably that far off. How ballistic it goes, that's yet to be seen. But if we get down to a 5, which could happen, maybe a high 5, I feel honestly, and I think you and I talked about this earlier, Dave, a high 5, I don't know. Maybe a mid 5 to a low 5, that could get pretty interesting, right? Pretty sexy.
Well, let's take a look at that for a second. If you're talking about a number that's in the high 5s, that's only a 1% drop from where we are presently. However, if you're talking about a number that's closer to 5%, that's almost a 2% drop. So
now we're talking.
I don't know that either case is going to cause the market to go ballistic, but I will say that if we see rates go back down into the possibly mid to high 5s, we will see a significant increase in activity. And if we see rates for some reason trickle down closer to the 5% mark, that will be an exponentially larger amount of activity for two reasons. Number one is obviously the interest rates having dropped will make it easier for people to qualify for more house. That will also have a lot of people that, while I may not necessarily agree that waiting is the tactic, a lot of people will jump down off that fence and jump down onto the playing field if they see rates getting down into the low fives. On the flip side of the coin, we've talked about a lot about what I respectfully refer to as interest rate prisoners. People who have interest rates on their home right now that are in the 2s and in the 3s. And they're saying, I may not love my house, I may not love my neighbors, I may not love my neighborhood, but I certainly love my interest rate, so I'm going to keep that home right now.
Right.
But because there's a big gap between that 3 point something and the 6 point something of where we are now. However,
Correct.
we see rates come down into the fives, even the low fives, maybe even something close to 5%.
Yeah.
And I'm very hopeful that this will happen. It might take a little time, but if we get to that 5% rate, and I'm certainly not advocating that people wait for that. I don't think waiting under any circumstances is a good thing. But if we were to see it come down to that 5, now you're talking about a 1.5 to possibly 2% differential from where all those sellers are. So what does that mean? You're going to see a flurry of people that have interest rates in the 2s and 3s putting their homes on the market. What is that going to do? That's going to increase inventory.
Right.
Increase in inventory is going to absolutely increase activity.
It's going to increase activity because now the buyers have more options, more things to look at, get them a little bit more excited. And then also it's going to improve competition. Sellers are going to have to be a little stronger with the price. So
and all those sellers that want to sell their house now but aren't selling will sell their house, increase inventory by putting their house on the market, and they will become buyers when they go to buy on the other side.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. So I know the new administration and the current administration right now, they've all got a very tricky numbers and market to work with here as far as managing inflation and the interest rates that help control purchasing and money and borrowing. So it's a tricky deal right now. It really is. So we'll see how things go forward with the new administration coming into 2025. I feel confident about it. I feel good about it. I like some of the things that are being talked about. Again, we'll see how it all plays out, right, Dave?
Yeah, and just to a point of walking the tight wire, let's take a step back and just look at where we were and where we've come to. We were at a point where inflation was topping 9%. We'd come out of a market where home rates, interest rates on mortgages were in the 2s.
Right.
And we saw prices on homes increase like we haven't seen in a very long time.
Right.
All of that contributed, that obviously driven by the pandemic, spurred inflation to a number over 9%. Now, the Federal Reserve, who idealistically is supposed to be nonpartisan, the Federal Reserve had a very, very tricky job to navigate interest rates to bring inflation down from 9 point something to a closer to a target of 2 point something, which is what they were shooting for, without driving the country into a recession.
Right.
Because if they do that too slow, you'll see a very slow decline in inflation, which isn't going to help. If they do that too fast, that could drive the country into recession. So I'm not necessarily commenting on the job that the Federal Reserve has done. But looking back from 2022 to now, we see inflation has come down from 9 point something to down into 2 point something.
2.1.
So while we're not quite where we want to be, we're certainly a lot closer.
Right.
Interest rates on the flip side have gone from 2 point something and went up as high as 8 point something. And now we're back down into the 6 point something range.
Right.
So to your point, it's absolutely tricky when you're trying to navigate all this. And I'm really hopeful that completely independent of the old versus the new administration, that the Federal Reserve will continue to navigate these waters very carefully to ultimately keep wage growth and jobs steady, bring prices and inflation down, so we can then get interest rates lowered and get interest rates to a point where we see a growth and greater stability in the housing market, which, by the way, the Federal Reserve definitely agrees.
Let me step
into
something real quick,
has some room to grow.
So to add to that, if anybody's out there waiting around for these rates to come back down to 3-4% or 2.99 or whatever that number is, when they were historical lows, you got to remember that was through COVID. That was historical lows for the disaster that we were in, right? The epidemic. So if you're waiting around for rates to get back to that level, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen unless something very catastrophic was to happen, like COVID.
Another pandemic, maybe a war.
Another pandemic, war, these type of things. So you really don't want rates to go that low at this point anymore, okay?
Yeah,
So,
the things, I think, to your point, what you're saying is the things that would drive rates down 2 to 3% range are not things that are good for life.
Exactly. Nothing good for our world, our economy, the United States, you, me, none of us, right? So we don't want that. But rates will improve a little bit more. I do feel that. Matter of fact, the Fed's speculating another cut this December, right, at the next Fed meeting.
Correct. The market is anticipating another quarter point cut.
Right.
At the December meeting, yes.
And I know people, Dave, remember just last month when the rates dropped down to that, you had a 5.62 for a while, and then we were just talking about
for about a 10-day period, just prior to the Federal Reserve's mid September meeting.
Yeah,
I was in the 5.875 to as low as 5.625 range on a par pricing.
Right.
And that number right now, as we speak today, as of Friday's close yesterday, was hovering around the 6.625. So about a 1% increase from prior to the federal announcement in mid-September to yesterday post-election.
I was calling some of my buyers at that point that had been on the fence because the rates were back up again and had dropped so quickly and for such a short amount of time, they didn't even have time to gather their senses because they kind of weren't looking actively again. And that's why I keep telling people, stay on your game. You got to keep active at this. If you're really wanting to make the move, if it's for you, for your family, for investment purposes. And there were times like now, coming up to the holidays, Dave, right, where a little bit of a lull, although there's been a little bit of a slight pickup here. Election's over, consumer confidence going back up. But rates are still high, right? Even though they have improved a little bit lately. I mean, I think right now we're at 20-month lows, roughly. I believe, well, close to it, right? In our interest rates, which should get people excited. But then again, we're also at 10-year highs. Does that sound about right to you?
I think the challenge that we face, and this is a part where we really need to communicate with our buyers, is people are still getting that 2 and 3% interest rate flavor out of their mouth.
Yeah.
And we need to really get people to get comfortable with spitting that down the drain, because that was a fantastic time while it lasted.
Right.
But for reasons that you've already laid out, waiting for interest rates for the 2s and 3s, even for the 4s, is not realistic.
Right.
One of the things that you'd mentioned in our pre-air discussion was October home sales. Did you want to comment a little bit on that and how that might possibly be tied into the slight dip in interest rates in September prior to the Fed meeting? I think what were the numbers that you had mentioned for home sales? They were up in October?
Let me get back to that, Dave. In October, where were we at with our home sales?
I think you said October home sales were up notably from September. October of this year, just last month.
I've got to find that. I don't know.
Well, I forget what the exact number was, but the overview was we were just talking about interest rates dipping during the early part of September.
Right.
It would make perfect sense that there were actually a significant number of people that jumped into the market at that point and decided to open escrow on a home. And all those people that stepped in when rates were in the, before the Federal Reserve announcement that then caused rates to trickle back up, enough people jumped in that all those people that jumped in September closed in October. And if I recall, I don't know exactly what the number was, but the existing home sales and closing of home sales for the month of October nationally was somewhat higher than September or August.
Yeah, and that would be related to that short drop in the rates.
But as you
and I were talking about, it was very interesting that more people didn't take advantage of that, because we talked about the volatility of these rates in the market, where people didn't even catch wind that, hey, rates are down to that number now. Now you can make something happen. And by the time a lot of them caught wind of that and started, getting the wheels moving again, well, the rates had already gone back up.
Well, and
There's
that
that.
brings me to a point that you mentioned last time, and it's an old phrase, right? Marry the house, date the rate.
Right. Correct.
A significant number of people that have 2 and 3% interest rates on their homes right now,
Mhm.
they did not buy the home with that rate. They bought at a notably higher interest rate.
Right.
They refinanced into those low rates when the rates dropped.
Yeah.
So my point is, if you like the house, if the move is the right move for you, then if the price is right for the home, you buy the home.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
yes, the interest rate affects your payment and your affordability. But I wouldn't necessarily, if you can afford the home at where rates are presently, I don't know that I would advocate waiting for interest rates to go down to the, high fives or even 5%.
Right. Well, Dave, what
Because
else
when that
happens in our
happens,
market? What else happens in our market when the rates do drop down like that? You see a significant pickup in mortgage applications, correct? Because
and
we
your
see a
competition as
significant
a
pickup.
buyer goes up.
We see a significant pickup in sales. So if you're not wanting to go against that mad rush of buyers coming back into the market and bidding prices up, and people, the competition really increases, and you have to remove contingencies and all of these different things, you have to employ these different tactics to even have a chance at winning the property. You're going to pay more for the property anyways if you're going to wait for that kind of number to come around. So again, back to your point, buy the house, marry the house, date the rate. I get it. I think
And
it's a great idea.
just to give you a little perspective, and this is maybe before you and I bought homes, but there was a period of time when my parents were in the home market and your parents, people were buying homes at 14, 15, 16, 17%. So,
Well, true, but
and
they
I
were also
understand that
buying
was
for a lot
very
less.
high,
Yeah.
but obviously those people didn't want to wait for a 5% interest rate. They bought their homes. And when the rates dropped, they refinanced.
Right.
So the broader picture that I'm putting at is you're purchasing your home, assuming that you can afford it with the interest rate that where rates are now. It should be based on your life and your desire and your need to sell your home, relocate your family, move your home, get a bigger home.
Right.
And even if the interest rate isn't ideal, you're marrying the house, you will have the opportunity to go on a different date with a different interest rate
Different
farther
date.
down the line.
Different rate date. There we go. Right. Take your
I'm
interest
just
rate out to a
advocating
nice
that
dinner.
waiting for rates isn't necessarily the best tactic.
And take your interest rate out for a nice dinner, some good wine. Maybe it'll lower itself a little bit and help you out some kind of way. We'll see.
There you go. Nothing wrong with a little dinner and a little wine, even if it
A
is
little
a
dinner, a little wine could go a long way sometimes. Absolutely. It's
That's
worth
it.
every penny. Every penny. Well spent money. So what's your take on 2025, Dave? What are you feeling as far as interest rates, the Fed talking in December, going forward? How do you feel? Are you going to be a buyer in 2025 or recommend to your family or friends that maybe they should look to buy now or wait till 2025?
If someone, back to my statement, if someone is in a need to buy now and they need to either sell their home and get a bigger home or relocate to a different area or the neighborhood or whatever, there's something about their job or something that has them where they need to move. If they can afford the home now, they need to do it now and not wait for interest rates. However, that said, I am hopeful. I am very hopeful that as we go into 2025, we will see the Federal Reserve continue to be effective in their fight against inflation. We will continue to see, even if it may be slow, improvement in inflation, improvement in the core, the consumer price index, which is an inflationary index, improvement in the PPI, producer price index, and improvement in the personal consumption expenditures, which happens to be the Fed's favorite gauge. And as a result, by seeing improvement in these inflationary related indices, see a continued improvement in interest rates, which will all around inspire sellers to come back into the market, inspire buyers to buy. And I'm very hopeful that 2025 will be a healthier year for the real estate environment and the real estate market and the housing market than 23 or 24 was.
I think it will be, Dave. I got a really good feeling about 2025. I really do. I don't think our
And you're
price
looking
is
at your crystal ball, so that makes me comfortable.
Let me bring in the crystal ball. Okay. Here it is. My golden crystal
The
ball.
famous crystal ball.
the famous crystal ball right here. I keep it in the office. Anytime I need to speculate, I'm going to look in here, and this is going to help me with my speculations. But one thing I could see in my future, very possible, that I might go to the F1 tonight here in Vegas and take a peek at that and grab some good dinner later on. That's what I'm seeing in the nearest future right over here. I look over here deep into 2025. I'm seeing really, I'm going to agree with what the NAR is saying and a lot of the analysts out there about how much our home values will increase in 2025. And it was anywhere from a 2 to a 2.5% increase in home values for 2025 and 2026, actually. I might bump that up a little bit more because I have a feeling, just a feeling, nothing that this is telling me over here in the golden crystal ball, but that rates are going to come down a little bit lower than that. I'm having a feeling we're going to get to that 5.5, 5.25 rate. And I know we got to get down to a low 5 to really get sexy for our real estate market next year. But I think we're going to get a little bit closer to that. I don't think we're getting into the 4s. Maybe 2026, we'll see what happens then. But it's going to trickle down a bit more. And I think we're going to have more buyers coming to the market. Even Ryan Serhant was saying he thinks the absorption rate is going to be something else. He's feeling a big buyer push coming into our market in 2025. So is Barbara Corcoran, especially her thoughts are if we get down to that, anything with a 5 in it, even a high 5, she feels that we're going to get ballistic, were her words to be exact. I don't really feel that, but I feel we're going to get busier regardless. And I think we're going to have a much better 2025. But I think 2026 is going to be where we start pulling out of the mud a little bit better.
Well, and just to your point there, I would just echo again in consistency with what I've said so far. While we might see an improvement in interest rates into 2025, that could be offset by a large number of buyers, which could affect pricing going up. So my suggestion to you is, rather than waiting for the interest rate, get your house now. Get your house if the price is right, the neighborhood is right, and the house is right.
Right.
Get it now, even though the rate may not be ideally where you'd like it. As long as you can afford it, get it. You can always refinance to a lower interest rate. And the good news is when the market is improving and lots of more buyers are flooding into the market, you don't have to compete with them because you'll already have your house. And all you have to do is turn around and refinance to get a lower interest rate.
Absolutely. If you're out there listening right now, please do me a favor and hit like and subscribe on here so we can make sure we keep you updated with lots of fantastic real estate market information and financials as well, as you've seen Dave and I get into some different discussions with that. And it's all going to be from an inside perspective from a hardworking current real estate agent and lender working with lots and lots of people. And from those, from our vision, we see a lot of things that we can share with people that you may not be hearing on the news or seeing coming out in these different reports. And we're going to keep it all straightforward for you because that's our style, number one. We're not hooking you in with anything. We're not going crazy with the crash, which, by the way, we had looked at. That's one of the most popular search terms out there right now is market crash. You know, still today, that market crash, and there's still people just pressing that and pushing that. I don't see it happening, folks. I really don't. And I know you and I talked about it earlier, Dave. I don't see a crash. A couple reasons.
Maybe there's a way that you can just tell our listeners now, if any of you out there listening have some feedback about either what you might be seeing in your real estate market somewhere in the United States, somewhere in the country, or some feedback that you might have on your thoughts and feelings, either as a seller or as a buyer, whether it's to do with house prices or interest rates or the market where you are. Maybe Cash can share how you can get that information to us.
I would love that, Dave. That'd be great if some people would chime in with that because we have a very affluent group of people out there that are listening to a lot of our information. And we also have real estate agents and other lenders that are following some of our info as well. So I'd love to get their inside perspective on what they see and feel and how they feel about our thoughts going forward for today and 2025, right?
How do they get that information back to you?
All you got to do is subscribe or message me one way or the other, or give me a call, throw a stone. You can get hold of me in just about any easy way today. And Thanksgiving, we definitely want to give thanks to our listeners, to our clients, to people who've even come and asked us questions or inquired of our thoughts of the market. We're here for you anytime. But more than that, I want to say how grateful and thankful I know I am, and Dave, I know you are as well, for anybody that's given us the opportunity to come into their lives and work with them with some of the largest purchases they're going to ever make. And we value that they put their faith in us. And I just am very grateful and thankful for anybody that has chosen to give us that opportunity.
Well said. And if I may just add on the heels of that, at this time of year, one of the things that I always like to ask people to think about is there are so many in the world this time of year who are fighting war, who are fighting famine, who are fighting hunger, who are fighting homelessness.
True.
And so for those of us who have what we have, even if it may not be everything that we think we would like, it is an excellent time to reflect and just be thankful and grateful for what we do have. And again, to echo what Cash said on behalf of myself and my team at PRMI, as well as Cash and his team, we are all exceptionally thankful and grateful for the support and the trust and the business that we have and shared with all of you over the years.
Absolutely. 100%. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening in once again. Again, like, subscribe so we can keep you updated on everything, and we'll be back again next week.
And get us your feedback.
And please, get us your feedback so we know how to answer some of your questions for next week's video. Thanks a lot, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.